Hey everybody, it's the Dreaded Farmer. I'm jumping on live for just a few minutes to share some things that have been on my heart as I've been kind of sitting back and watching the enemy just ravage marriages right now. I mean, it is one of those things where marriage is something that God gave us, so it's very precious to God, it's precious to us, but the enemy hates it. So he's attacking hard, especially people that have true love for each other. So I felt like I needed to get on here and just encourage people. I'm probably going to do this every Monday and just call it a Monday marriage motivation. Um, there's just so much that I've learned through the years, especially being with my beautiful wife, and just learning all about love and what love truly is. And love is truly a sacrifice. It's not about feeling good. It's not about the person always doing what you want. We can be selfish in that way, or we can be selfless and focus on doing good things for our spouse. But either way, if we don't have that love that's a sacrifice for the other person, the relationship will always crumble. I think back to high school relationships, some in college as well. I didn't have that many, as many people that know me know that. But the few that I had, um, I think they didn't last because I was selfish, because I wanted what I wanted, and I wanted them to be for me what I think a woman should be, or whatever that is, whatever goofy notion of love I had as a youngster. That's basically what happened, and those relationships crumbled. And what happens for many of us as we get older, we don't actually grow up. We still go into these new relationships and we decide, okay, it's time for me to settle down. It's time for me to find the one that's for me. And of course, God's already going to send that person to you. It's what do you do with that person? So if you go into that relationship, wanting to be selfless and wanting to sacrifice your desires for theirs, then it'll last, because usually that sacrifice will basically bring a reciprocal sacrifice from your spouse. But if you go into these relationships, even when you're ready to settle down, you say, I'm tired of messing around or playing or whatever it might have been, and you don't grow up. So you go into this relationship, you find this person you want to marry, and then you're still this kid that wants it your own way. You're still this person that thinks that this woman needs to be everything I've ever wanted. And of course, in the beginning, when you're courting each other, that happens, right? They do everything you want them to do. They impress you in so many different ways, and you impress them in so many different ways. But then, as time passes, the real you comes out, and the real her comes out. And so, when you realize that, hey, now it's time for me to do what I want, or I want you to give me everything I want, then things crumble, because that's not really how it should be. So we have to grow up. We have to get to a point where we realize that, hey, I chose this person. One of my uncles, this past weekend, I was in a wedding, or not past weekend, but weekend before, I was in California when one of my cousins got married, and her dad said the most profound thing. When you get in an argument with your spouse, just remember why you married that person. And also remember that you chose them. You chose them. So this is what you picked. So it's like, you go in the store and getting the food that you want to eat, and then when you eat it, you complain about it. Doesn't make any sense, because you actually chose it. So you chose what you wanted, and your spouse is who you wanted. So that's what I want to impress on you, is that when you get in arguments with your spouse, especially those of you that have that true love and that sacrifice, and the enemy is attacking, and you feel like, man, I got to get out of this relationship. No, 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 no. You're not, God didn't give us a heart to quit at all. We're to stand strong, persevere, and grow up. So when the going gets tough, you don't get going. You got to dig in, and you got to draw closer and closer to your spouse now than you ever were, even if you're annoyed. And that's a hard concept, but that's what sacrifice is all about. And you just have to remember, I chose her. I chose her. This was my choice. I decided to marry this woman. This is my soulmate. This is who God has given me. This is the person I must cherish for the rest of my days until death do us part, because we give that vow. And we talked before about, are you reliable? Can you be trusted with the vow that you gave before God and before man? So I got a few things that I learned recently that I want to share with you about just how to kind of dig into a right relationship with your spouse. And if you're not married, and you're looking to get married, or if you're not married and you're not looking to get married, you still need to hear this message, because you will be in relationships, and there will be a time where you will decide, okay, I think this is the one, or I think I'm ready to settle down, or I want to grow up, or whatever the case is, and you should know this. So the first thing is to choose not to complain. You know, a lot of times, just by nature, we have that spirit of complaint in us, and it's not necessary. Don't complain. It's like, one of my mentors always used to tell me, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. And it's the same in your relationship with your spouse. Don't come to your spouse with a problem, come to your spouse with a solution, but be willing to work it out with them, because they are one with you, and you love them and they love you. So there's going to be some give and take, and there's going to be some sacrifice. So make sure you're prepared to sacrifice without complaining. Choose to love God and love people. I think, from my standpoint, from what I've learned throughout my life and from what God has revealed to me, it really starts with a love for him. If you have a love for him, you put him first, then you're going to always be able to put others next. But if you don't put him first, that means you're putting yourself first. And it's very hard to drop that selfishness when you're the king of your universe or the center of your universe. So drop yourself. It ain't about you. It's about others. So drop yourself. I'm not that important. You're not that important. Someone else is. God is, and so is your spouse. So choose to love your spouse. Choose to love people. Choose to be kind and forgiving. It's so easy for us to get angry. It's so easy for us to feel like we have to fight battles or stand up for our rights when we're in a relationship, because it seems like the spouse is always getting what they want. Who cares? You be kind, be forgiving. The more you forgive, the more you'll be forgiven. And that's scriptural. And in your relationship, always seek forgiveness often and seek to forgive often. Always, if you do something wrong, acknowledge it. I'm wrong. Please forgive me. If you do that with your spouse, if you do that, it's hard for them to stay mad at you. But if you always think that you're right and you have to be the one that's right at all times, or if you have to be the one that gets the last word in, like me at many times, that's something I'm working on. It's something God's working on with me. The more you let those things go and let that fight go, the more you're going to be able to draw closer to your spouse and draw your spouse near. Choose gratitude. It goes back to what my uncle said, about I chose her. So if you chose the person that you're married to, or that you're engaged to, or that you're with, then choose gratitude. Choose to love and respect that person. Choose to be thankful and grateful that you have this person in your life. Choose gratitude. Thank your creator that you're even here. I thank God every day that I have the breath of life, that I actually woke up, because at any moment I could get smoked by a truck and I'll be gone, but I'm glad I'm still here, because there's people here that I love. There's people here that I want to be near. There's people here that I want to minister to. There's people like you and everyone that's watching that, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm here for you, and God's keeping me here for that. So I'm grateful for you for watching. I'm grateful for anybody that's even taking the time to figure out what they can do in their marriage as it's getting attacked, because all of our marriages are getting attacked, not just yours, mine, everybody's. But you got to stand firm and stand firm against the enemy. There's a spirit of rebellion. There's a spirit of argument. There's a spirit of frustration and jealousy and all these things. There's a spirit of sensuality. There's a spirit of discontent in your relationship, in all of our relationships, and that spirit comes from the enemy. So stand firm, draw closer to your God, draw closer to your spouse. So choose to reject that critical spirit. It's so easy when Mi-Ling does something that I don't really agree with for me to just automatically have that, oh, that annoys me, or just be critical of a decision that she's made or something that she's told the kids that might be contrary to something that I might have wanted to tell them or wanted to teach them. You got to reject that critical spirit, because that is the little pebble that starts the drop and starts the ripple of effect of all the water that ends up crashing on the other side of the earth. So don't even let that pebble drop in the water. Reject that critical spirit. Choose to have joy. And I think that goes back to the gratitude and just acknowledging that you chose this person. So choose to have joy, and know that the joy that you have, not necessarily coming from your spouse as much as it is coming from your creator. So if you choose to have the joy that comes from your creator, it doesn't matter what your spouse does. It doesn't matter what your kids does. It doesn't matter what your fiance or anyone that you're with, it doesn't matter what they're doing, because the joy that you have comes from him. And when that joy comes from him, then you can share it with your spouse, and you're actually going to be lovable. Because a lot of times we have issues because we're not lovable. We're not being lovable. We're not being fun to live with. And when we're not fun to live with, people don't want to be around us. So don't be that heat miser. Don't be that Scrooge. Be someone that's fun to live with. Be someone that's joyful. And if you don't know how to get the joy that I'm talking about, you need to contact me. You need to reach out to me, PM me, call me, whatever you got to do, email, and I will show you, I will point you in the direction where that crossroad is. So I can point you to the true source of the joy that I have on a daily basis. And that's the reason why I can get on here and share with you. And then the last thing is to choose life more abundant, like Yeshua said in John chapter 10, verse 10. I encourage you to look up that verse and dig in and understand the context of that verse and how it could affect your life in general, but also affect your relationship with your spouse. And just know that, like I said, the enemy is attacking marriages. So don't be alarmed. Don't be shocked and amazed at what's going on in your relationship. Be calm, be sober-minded, and be grateful and have joy. And instead of running from your spouse, run to your spouse, run to your God, because that's where the true solution is. God will give you a way to connect with your spouse in a way that you've never connected, and he will mend that relationship. We can't do anything on our own. Apart from him, we can do nothing, as scripture says. So draw closer to him, and he will show you how to draw closer to your wife in a way that will draw your wife or your spouse closer to you. But you gotta rely on him. As it says in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path, or he will make your path straight, depending on the translation. But he's the one that, if you acknowledge him in everything you do, he's the one that tells you how to stay straight on the right path, especially towards the relationship that's most sacred in your life, which is your spouse. So anyway, I'm going to jump off. I don't even know if anybody heard this because I'm using new technology. That's why I have these headphones on. It may have worked, may not have worked. I bless God for allowing me to get on here. And hopefully this blesses you, and hopefully you get the message and you're able to apply it into your relationship with your spouse. But just want you to know that I love all of y'all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So I want you to live it, love it, share it. Dreaded Farmer signing out. Shalom. Peace.